attempts in that Monday night loss in Atlanta. Now, sometimes numbers mean what you want them to mean, okay? Peyton Manning is 16-2 against the Texans in his career. One of the best record for any quarterback against a single opponent. But keep in mind, many of those Houston teams Manning played against were awful. And that's when the Colts were winning 12 games a year. So this could have literally no bearing on the game as it's played out Sunday. So time to ask the expert. And Rocky wants to know, hey, do you think Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos get it straightened out and upset an excellent Houston team? Teddy, what do you think about that?
Well, it's a difficult task. I mean, this Houston Texan defense is just going to see what the Atlanta Falcons did last week, and they've got their own element of disguise. And by the way, their front seven is better than the Atlanta Falcons. They've got rushers that can get to Peyton Manning without being exotic. So what Peyton Manning needs to do is establish that running game. Call the game to where if they give him favorable situations and McGahee can get off and get 6 yards on first down or something like that, that's when Peyton Manning's most effective, because when you're going up against a defense and Peyton Manning, and defensively you still respect the run, that takes you out of all of your disguise, because you realize that run game is still a threat. If they become one-dimensional, that's when defenders say, okay, I can line up over here and disguise and do anything that I want because they can't run the ball.
Certainly that was when he was most effective in the Monday night game, when they had the running game going, and then he was able to dictate to the defense. Speaking of running games, Mark, you have to think that Texans running game with Arian Foster and Ben Tate certainly looks very familiar to a couple you used to run with.
Right, we all like to focus on Peyton Manning, how he's going to respond. Well, the biggest question mark, how is this Denver Broncos defense going to respond to the running game of the Houston Texans? Because they run that zone system with Arian Foster and all those offensive linemen together, and it's one of the toughest systems there is. Now, I want you to watch this backside tight end. What he does is seals the backside. Now you've got a two-way go. You can press the hole, and oftentimes that backers get caught up a little bit watching that motion go back there, or you see that backside cut. That was big right there. But they decide to press the hole because later in the game, what's going to happen? You're going to be able to expose that. Onside, you've got 4 yards right there if you want it. Backside, once everybody gets down, boom, one cut, straight uphill, and you're getting 12 yards per carry. Nobody does this better than the Houston Texans right now. It reminds me of the old Denver Broncos that won back-to-back championships with Terrell Davis running the ball, because they do it as well as anybody. And obviously, Gary Kubiak was the offensive coordinator back then, now the head coach.
And you know what's so frustrating about watching that right there? Defenders on the ground. That's what your teams were so good at, and the Texans. They chop you down at the knees. It's legal. They can do it, and you got to fight to get off those blocks. So
this is a big test for the Broncos, but it's also the real first test for the Texans this year, as they've played a couple of teams, the Miami Dolphins and Ryan Tannehill's first start, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it's a test for both of them. So let's pick it now. Who do you like in this game and why?
I'm going to take the Houston Texans. Again, I've seen two teams that I think are the most physical teams in football, the San Francisco 49ers and the Houston Texans. Both sides of the ball, they're very balanced. I like this Texans team.
Yeah, and I'm going with the Texans two sting, just because of that telestration. You just had that running game. It's legit, it's for real, and I think it's going to have a huge day against the Broncos.
Texans have never started 3-0 in franchise history.